treasure hunting, adventure in the unknown, hunting for relics left from perished cultures and civilizations, solving riddles, proving you're worthy, a smart wisecracking hero, archaeology? This is something I'm looking for in an adventure game, first or third person. In the right hands, this combination could lead to some awesome movies and video games, probably books too, but I'm more of a murder mystery reader and some sci-fi. On the silver screen, there are some obvious choices, but I'm gonna throw you some that are worth checking out. The Librarian trilogy, a good made-for-TV movies starring Noah Wiley. There are obvious games that fit the criteria I listed, like Uncharted or Tomb Raider franchises, but if you are point-and-click adventure fan, there are a decent selection to entertain you for hours on end. Lost Horizon, Indiana Jones games, Secret Files series, Nibiru, Age of Secrets, etc. And by twisting the rules you get something like Spelunky. There is one particular which I have to talk about someday. Deadfall Adventures was always on my radar. On surface level it ticks all the boxes, a chance to play something in the vein of what I described, but in first person. On top of that, it's developed by the Found 51, the studio behind Necrovision, pretty decent FPS. The Found 51 is founded by two people who work on Painkiller, fantastic throwback FPS made before it was the norm. To be the circle complete, Found 51 remade Painkiller. So how the game turns out? Well, hit and miss, mostly miss. The game takes place in 1938 in the dawn of World War II. You play as the great-grandson of Alan Quatermain, James Lee Quatermain. Alan Quatermain is a fictional character and the protagonist of King Solomon's Mines book and its sequels, written by Sir Henry Rider Haggard. James is hired by a mysterious organization that searches all over the world for artifacts or investigate
mythical nonsense
to help find the Drivers. The Heart of Atlantis. The first is where the game starts, in Egypt. The introduction of James is very cool, spoiled only by the quality of the cutscene.
Hey, stop!
You should pick your drivers more carefully around these parts.
Professor, meet James Lee Quatermain.
Along with him, the agency attaches one of their agents, Jennifer Goodwin. Of course, James doesn't believe all this
mythical nonsense.
He also thinks that his great-grandfather made up all his stories, but he still uses his name to make a living.
My great-grandfather, Alan Quatermain. His name, a byword for adventure, and my main source of income. A lot of people paid good money to say they traveled with a Quatermain. And I did whatever anyone would pay me for, even played babysitter for a greenhorn agent.
After arriving in front of a pyramid, they are attacked by German soldiers. Of course, the Nazi wants the Triforce. The Heart of Atlantis. You may be wondering what does it do? It brings back the dead and controls them. No wonder Nazis want it. In the pyramid there is just one piece. Upon opening a door inside, a bright light shines and James and Jen are knocked out and captured by Nazis. Quatermain wakes up alone and after a few quote-unquote puzzles, Nazis pop up behind him with Jennifer. There is the big brute and the scientist/archaeologist. After finding part of the heart, Quatermain is forced to put it in a shrine nearby. This reveals a star map. The big German soldier tries to shoot Quatermain, but the scientists trigger the self-destruct sequence and gave the piece of the heart to James and Jennifer. He's on the good guy's side, I guess. On their way out, mummies showed up and tried to kill them. After escaping Egypt, the head of the mysterious organization tells you the configuration of the star map can be observed from one place, the Arctic. So this is your next destination. There you find the German scientist and he tag along. And this is the beginning of the grand adventure. The plot has every single cliché you can think of. British guy in charge of the agency? Check. Wisecracking protagonist? Check. Non-believers start to believe? Check. Over-the-top brute German soldier? Check. Betrayal? Check. Oops, spoilers. Nah, don't worry. You see it from the moon, especially after the quote-unquote boss fight against the big German soldier.
Beware of snakes, American. They can never neglect their nature.
Also, there is a lot of inconsistencies. In the beginning, the British guy gives James his great-grandfather's diary. Inside are clues to every location Quatermain will visit. His great-grandfather was there before him. They even address it in the game.
Easy, soldier. The Prof owns a couple of the old man's unpublished diaries, where great-granddad speculates about the connection between the legend of the 7 cities of gold and the temples we've been to. Great-granddad Alan thought there are 7 temples, and he managed to find 6 of them before he died.
But he didn't find the heart of Atlantis?
Or maybe was smart enough not to unite it.
But my question is why he didn't destroy his diary, leaving it to fall into the wrong hands? Or how about from where James knows the light will weaken the mummies? Just don't tell me the diary. Something that important could be explained better. The story feels safe, don't have any surprises, don't take any risks, and it's unpolished. The influence is obvious, Indiana Jones and the aforementioned book, but it lacks the charm, at least when it comes to Indiana Jones franchise. There is another reason, but I'll discuss it later in the video. One of the reasons why the story falls short for me is the voice acting. It's okay. I like Jennifer, but James... I've heard worse, but I'm not particularly a fan of this performance. Also, I don't buy the chemistry between the two of them. I guess James' lines was supposed to be written to sound cool, but it comes more like whining.
Hell of a fight.
Come with me if you want to live.
Almonds. The greedy fool led his soldiers deeper and deeper, no matter how many it killed.
And now we're going... No, let me guess. Deeper and deeper.
On the other hand, I find the big German bad guy quite funny.
Willkommen! Now I can kill 3 flies with 1 club!
Huh?
Different languages, different proverbs, Mr. Quatermain.
Hey, Steinreck! I think you have something that belongs to us!
It belongs to the Reich! It belongs to our Führer!
Down!
So over the top. The story is fine but very forgettable, but where things go sour is in the gameplay. The shooting is what you expect for game made at that time. Aiming down sights for better accuracy. That you haven't seen before. It's fine. I was surprised I managed to kill a lot of people without using aiming down sights. You can carry 2 weapons with occasional third one like a machine gun or Panzerfaust. The whole arsenal is what you've seen in any other World War II shooter. Webley 455 MK, Luger P08, Tokarev TT-33 pistol, MP-34, MP-38, Thompson submachine gun, Carabiner 98K with and without scope, Fedorov automat, and many others. I'm not gonna list them all. My favorite is the shotgun. It's a beast and has a good reach. The other is Mauser 96 or any other semi or fully automatic pistols. You can dual wield them and wreck enemies. If you run out of ammo, you always go back to your default pistols, but they suck, mostly because of the reload speed. It's slow even when upgraded. The worst is Thompson. The spread is so wide and I couldn't hit anyone. If I had to choose between the default pistols and Thompson, guess which one I chose. I feel like the gunplay shouldn't follow the trend of that time. The tone and setting are more appropriate for an old school shooter. No aiming down sights, more weapons to carry, more action, more set pieces. As it is now, the gameplay is average at best. The only real memorable section of the game is when you ride a minecart and shoot commies. It's definitely inspired by Temple of Doom, but it's kinda ruined a bit because of the sound design. It's lacking. You go through a massive underground complex built by the Russians and they are chasing you in their own minecarts, explosions everywhere, lava, rail track falling apart. It's awesome. Yes, the Russians want the heart of Atlantis too. Of course they do. The section is split in 2 with decent firefight in between. It's absurd and maybe the game should have committed to that. There is one more decent firefight I remember. The rest of the game is just forgettable. Most enemies are humans, but in less than 1/3 of the game you'll shoot mummies. The only way to defeat them is to burn them with your flashlight. This mechanic is borrowed directly from Alan Wake. It's used mostly in the last few levels. It's a nice change and it offers a challenge when there are many mummies on screen. I usually don't talk about AI, but this game... oh boy. Another symptom of the time when the game was made is your companions. They can shoot but never kill, you have to do everything even if they show their heads behind the cover. They even boss you around. Do this, do that. Enemies are brain dead. Mummies charge you in a straight line. Humans stay mostly behind cover or show their heads just to be shot, or in the best case scenario walk slowly towards you and maybe throw a grenade. There is a light upgrade system. It's tied to the treasures you find in the levels. I like the idea. You are a treasure hunter after all, and it's an excuse to explore the awesome levels. When you have enough and find some of these oracle statues, you can upgrade some skills. Stamina, health, reloading, recharging, speed of the flashlight, and reducing the spread of the weapons. There are 3 ways to find them: by searching blindly for them, finding a map that shows their location, or by using the freaking compass. It took me more than half of the game to realize what it's for, and it was by a chance. On one of the loading screens there was a tip for the compass. I have no idea why it wasn't stated in the beginning. It could be done with the first region, for example. Here is an idea. James drops the compass and it stays open. He sees that it's pointing to something or somewhere. Follow the direction and boom, a treasure. Then he says, "You're not useless after all," and job done. Simple. This was so frustrating. The biggest issue for me is the puzzles. The solution are spelled for you. Literally. In the diary. If you make puzzles integral part of the game, you should make the player feel smart. Leave breadcrumbs to the solution around the area, not in the freaking diary, left from your great grandfather. With few exceptions, even without the hints, they are not difficult. Not to mention the constant repetition of puzzles. Shoot the spinning tile in the correct order. Shoot the rings in the correct order. Use the mirror to reflect light. Match symbols, etc. Too much hand holding and repetition. Let's talk about something more positive, like the levels. They are gorgeous and huge, sometimes too big. The pyramid in the beginning has a lot of different chambers with different architectures, statues, trap, water, etc. Later levels become much more diverse and interesting. After the Sands of Egypt, the Arctic is your next destination. There you will fight your way through a Nazi base, in a cave, camps outside, and even a harbor with a submarine. And let's not forget the minecart level. The last few levels are the best. Where you go after the freezing cold? Somewhere warm. How about Guatemala? The color contrasts so much comparing to the previous level. You start in a lush green jungle filled with waterfalls, shooting mercenaries in long dead settlements, finishing in a Mayan pyramid. Other levels have some issues. As I said, they are too big, filled with nothing. Before I realized for what it was the compass, I was wandering in the big wasteland looking for treasures. It killed the pace. Fortunately, as the game progressed, the level design becomes better. Even if they were empty, they didn't feel like it, or at the very least they were pretty to look at. The levels are great, but the human characters are not that good looking. This is not a AAA game and I don't expect more. But what I wasn't expecting was the amount of pop-in or slowly loading textures. It's everywhere, even in the main menu. I'm not bothered that much, but I had to mention it. There are some bugs here and there, like broken animation or dual wielding 2 weapons that are impossible under normal circumstances. The game looks fine, you don't need the beast of a PC to run it, but for some reason it stutters here and there. I don't know what is causing it, maybe loading in the background? Who knows? The question now is it worth a B? It's a tough one, or maybe not. I like the idea of an FPS starring the great grandson of Alan Quatermain on a quest to save the world, but the execution lags big time. As I said, the shooting is average at best. It's lacking thrilling moments with few exceptions. Puzzles are disappointing. The story is fine, but some plot holes are glaringly big. Music is okay, but I don't remember a single track. I had to listen it on YouTube. Games of this type are not Diamond Dawn, and that's why the final product is so disappointing. There is a lot of potential in a sequel, but an improvement of shooting and puzzles is required. I don't think we're ever gonna see it. The unfortunate reality is the game can't escape mediocrity. It's kinda hard to give a B, but if you are curious, check it on very big discount. For the others, just don't bother. It's such a disappointment. Then, from where this game come from?
That seems to have done it. Oops, think I just took 18 years off that calendar. Oh well, don't think anyone will notice.